Welcome to History with Herodotus, where the boundaries of time and space are bridged by the power of storytelling. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey, tracing the footsteps of a legendary traveler who defied the conventions of his era, Marco Polo. This Phoenician merchant's odyssey would change the course of history, weaving an intricate tapestry of cultures, empires, and landscapes that continue to captivate our imagination. In the mid-13th century, the world was a complex mosaic of kingdoms, city-states, and empires, each with its unique cultural, economic, and political identity. The Mediterranean, with its strategic position at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, was a hotbed of trade, intellectual curiosity, and adventure. It was here, in the vibrant city of Venice, that Marco Polo's story began to unfold. Venice, with its majestic architecture, bustling markets, and savvy merchants, was a hub of commercial activity, attracting traders and travelers from all corners of the known world. The Polo family, renowned for their entrepreneurial spirit and seafaring expertise, had established themselves as prominent figures in Venetian society. Marco's father, Nicole, and his uncle Maffeo were seasoned merchants who had already ventured into the unknown, establishing trade relationships with the East. The seeds of Marco's epic journey were sown during the reign of Pope Gregory X, who, in 1271, dispatched an embassy to the court of Kublai Khan, the Mongol Emperor of China. The Pope's emissaries, Niccolo and Maffeo Polo, were tasked with establishing diplomatic relations and exploring the possibilities of trade between East and West. As they traversed the vast expanse of Asia, they encountered a multitude of cultures, marvels, and challenges that would shape their worldview and inspire their young nephew Marco. The Polos' initial journey took them through modern-day Turkey, Armenia, and Persia, where they encountered the remnants of ancient civilizations, bustling markets, and the majesty of the Silk Road. As they navigated the complex web of alliances and rivalries between kingdoms and city-states, they began to grasp the sheer scale and diversity of the Asian continent. The stories of their travels, told around campfires and in hushed whispers, would ignite Marco's imagination, fueling his desire to explore the unknown and forge his own path. As the years passed, Marco grew into a capable and curious young man, schooled in the art of commerce, navigation, and diplomacy by his father and uncle. The Polo family's mercantile activities continued to flourish, with trade expeditions to the East becoming increasingly frequent and lucrative. It was against this backdrop of commercial expansion, cultural exchange, and familial tradition that Marco Polo began to contemplate his own journey, one that would take him farther than any European had ventured before. As Marco Polo began to contemplate his own journey, he was drawn to the stories of his father and uncle, who had regaled him with tales of the magnificent cities, exotic cultures, and vast trade networks they had encountered on their travels. In 1271, Niccolo and Maffeo Polo set out once again for the East, this time with Marco in tow, eager to explore the wonders they had described. The trio traveled through modern-day Turkey, Armenia, and Persia, following the Silk Road, a network of ancient trade routes that stretched over 4,000 miles from China to the Mediterranean. Their journey was not without its challenges, as they navigated treacherous mountain passes, crossed scorching deserts, and encountered hostile tribes. However, the Polos were undeterred, driven by their insatiable curiosity and thirst for adventure. As they traveled, Marco marveled at the diverse cultures and landscapes they encountered, from the majestic mosques of Samarkand to the bustling markets of Bukhara. In 1273, they arrived in the city of Kashgar, a major stopover on the Silk Road, where they rested and replenished their supplies before continuing their journey. The following year, 1274, the Polos entered the vast expanse of the Mongol Empire, which stretched from China to Eastern Europe. They were received with great fanfare by Kublai Khan, the Mongol emperor, who was fascinated by their stories of the West and eager to establish trade relations with European kingdoms. Marco, who had learned the Mongolian language and customs during his travels, quickly gained the favor of the Khan, who appointed him as a special envoy to explore the empire and report back on its vast resources and commercial opportunities. As Marco traveled through the Mongol Empire, he was struck by the sophistication and complexity of its administrative systems, which allowed for efficient governance and taxation across vast distances. He also marveled at the stunning architecture, including the magnificent palace of Xanadu with its intricate gardens and imposing walls. In 1275, Marco arrived in the city of Hangzhou, which he described as the most beautiful and prosperous city he had ever seen, with its majestic canals, bustling markets, and exquisite silk fabrics. During his stay in Hangzhou, Marco became fascinated by the local customs and traditions, including the vibrant festivals and ceremonies that marked the changing of the seasons. He also developed a deep appreciation for the Chinese art of porcelain making, which he described as a marvelous craft that produced vessels of unsurpassed beauty and delicacy. As he prepared to leave Hangzhou and continue his journey, Marco reflected on the incredible experiences he had accumulated during his travels, from the towering mountain ranges to the vast deserts, and from the magnificent cities to the humble villages. In 1276, Marco set out once again, this time bound for the southern province of Yunnan, where he hoped to explore the fabled tea plantations and learn about the local trade in precious spices and textiles. As he traveled through the rolling hills and verdant valleys, Marco encountered a diverse array of cultures, including the Bai people, who were renowned for their exquisite craftsmanship and vibrant festivals. He also marveled at the stunning natural beauty of the region, including the towering waterfalls and crystal-clear lakes that dotted the landscape. As Marco traveled through the southern province of Yunnan, he became increasingly aware of the vast and complex trade networks that crisscrossed the region, connecting China to India, Southeast Asia, and beyond. He marveled at the sheer scale and sophistication of these networks, which allowed for the exchange of goods such as tea, spices, textiles, and precious stones across vast distances. In 1277, Marco returned to the court of Kublai Khan, where he was greeted with great fanfare and debriefed on his extensive travels. The Khan was particularly interested in Marco's accounts of the rich resources and commercial opportunities that existed in the regions he had visited. Over the next several years, Marco continued to serve as a special envoy for the Mongol Empire, traveling extensively throughout China and Southeast Asia, and playing a key role in establishing trade relations between the East and the West. However, as the years passed, Marco began to feel the call of home, and in 1292 he set out on the long journey back to Venice, accompanied by his father Nickel and his uncle Maffeo. The trio traveled by sea, following the maritime trade routes that connected China to the Mediterranean, and arrived back in Venice in 1295 after an absence of nearly a quarter of a century. Marco's return to Venice was met with great excitement and curiosity, as he regaled his fellow citizens with tales of his incredible journeys and the wonders he had encountered. His stories of the East, which were later written down by Risticello da Pisa, a fellow prisoner during Marco's time in jail, would go on to captivate audiences across Europe, inspiring countless others to explore the unknown and seek out new trade opportunities. As the great historian, Janet Abu Luhad has noted, Marco Polo's travels marked the beginning of a new era of global connectivity, one that would have far-reaching consequences for the development of international trade, cultural exchange, and the rise of European imperialism. Today, Marco Polo is remembered as one of the greatest travelers in history, a man who embodied the spirit of adventure and curiosity that defined the age of exploration. His journeys, which took him to the farthest reaches of the known world, opened up new trade routes, facilitated cultural exchange, and inspired generations of explorers, merchants, and scholars. In the words of Marco himself, the world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.